I found a recording from my future self warning me about someone I love, but should I believe it? I found a voice memo on an old, encrypted drive that shouldn't have existed, and the voice on the other end was mine. 10 years older, sounding like it had been through a war, telling me that the person sleeping in the next room was going to destroy everything I loved. It wasn't just a prank or a hallucination. The recording mentioned specific details about my birthmark and a secret I had never told a soul, leaving me to decide if I should trust the woman I was planning to marry or a ghost from a future that hadn't happened yet. At 27, I thought my life was perfect. I was working as a junior data analyst, and I had just moved in with Maya, who was 26 and the kind of person who made everyone feel like they were the only person in the room. We had that kind of effortless love people write songs about. But while cleaning out an old tech box I'd bought at a local estate sale, I found a sleek, branded silver drive. When I plugged it in, there was only one file, listen_now_leo.mp3. The voice that came through the speakers was unmistakably mine, but weathered. The future Leo told me that in exactly 3 weeks, Maya would ask me to co-sign a loan for her brother's business venture. He told me that if I said yes, it would be the first domino in a series of events that would lead to my bankruptcy, the loss of my family's home, and eventually, a betrayal that would leave me with nothing but this recording. If you heard your own voice telling you your partner was a liar, would you pack your bags immediately or call yourself crazy? For the first few days, I lived in a state of vibrating anxiety. I watched Maya across the breakfast table, looking for any sign of the monster my future self described. But all I saw was the woman who brought me coffee when I was stressed and laughed at my terrible jokes. She was kind, hardworking, and seemingly obsessed with me. I started to convince myself the recording was a sophisticated deepfake or some elaborate psychological experiment. But then, the future Leo mentioned a specific date, October 14th. He said that on this day, I would receive a phone call from an old friend named Marcus, whom I hadn't spoken to in years, and he would mention a gold mine opportunity. On October 14th, at 2 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Marcus. My blood turned to ice as he started talking about a new investment. How many coincidences would it take for you to start believing the impossible? I realized then that the recording was real. But the realization didn't bring clarity, it brought agony. If the future was set in stone, did that mean Maya was already a villain, or was she just a person who would make a series of mistakes? I began to distance myself, pulling away from her touch, watching her with a clinical, suspicious eye. The love that had felt like my home suddenly felt like a cage. The 3-week mark arrived. Maya came home, looking nervous, and sat me down on the sofa. She started talking about her brother, Liam, and a new tech startup he was launching. She asked me if I would be willing to co-sign a bridge loan just for a few months. It was word for word what the recording had warned me about. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw the cracks. I saw the desperation in her eyes that I had previously interpreted as passion. I realized that my future self wasn't just warning me about Maya, he was warning me about my own inability to set boundaries. I had always been a giver, the kind of guy who would set himself on fire to keep others warm. The future Leo wasn't just bitter, he was a version of me that had finally burned out. I didn't scream. I didn't show her the recording. Instead, I did something the recording didn't predict. I said no. I told her I loved her, but I wouldn't tie my financial future to her brother's risks. The transformation in her face was instantaneous. The warmth vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating fury I had never seen. She accused me of not trusting her, of not being a real partner. Within 48 hours, she had packed her things and moved out. A week later, I found out through mutual friends that she had already been scouting for another investor, months before she ever asked me. I sat in my empty apartment, replaying the recording one last time. At the very end, there was a part one had missed before. My future voice said that the goal wasn't just to save my money, it was to save my soul from becoming someone who hates the world. He told me that betrayal only destroys you if you let it turn you into a person who can never trust again. I realized the greatest life lesson wasn't that people are bad, but that trust must be earned and guarded. I had been living in a fantasy where love meant blind obedience. By listening to my future self, I learned that the most important relationship I would ever have was with my own intuition. Would you rather live a happy lie or a painful truth if you knew the lie would eventually ruin you? Today, I'm 37. I'm the age of the man on that recording. I never lost the house, and I never went bankrupt. I eventually met someone who didn't need a co-signer to prove my love, and we built a life based on mutual respect rather than mutual need. Sometimes I wonder if that recording actually came from the future, or if it was just my own subconscious finally finding a way to scream the truth at me. Either way, it saved me. The silence that followed Maya's departure wasn't lonely, it was the sound of a bullet missing my head. I learned that the people we love can be our greatest teachers, even if the lesson they teach is how to walk away from them. What would you do? If you found a warning from your future self today, would you have the courage to change your path, even if it meant breaking your own heart? Let me know your thoughts.